Welcome back to the imaginary gallery. This is personal self-defense against the narcissist reflection number 2. We left off at number 6, so I have moved on to number 7, which is called Avoid Temptation, Good Luck. That's one of the things about these, whether they're psychopath or sociopath or narcissistic, whatever the case is, one common thread with all of them is they love beginnings, because each new beginning allows them to clear the slate and reinvent themselves as the perfect person for you. And because they know the power of first impressions, they're certain to make sure their impression is perfect. You notice they're probably quiet at first a lot of times because they're soaking in you, figuring out what you're about, so then when they eventually start to talk to you a little bit more, it's tailor-made to fit what you've already displayed. Their charm and all the stuff they do to you gives you a good impression. And honestly, what else do you have to go on except what you're given? So that's what makes it easy for many of us to fall prey to their games. About the book. You may go to the bookstore and see a great book cover, but rarely would you just buy it because the book cover's pretty. You'd want to read some reviews or at least leaf through it, but many times the cluster B monster doesn't want to go through the normal process of assessing a person, and they'll be quick to tell you, oh, you don't like liars? Oh, well, I never lie. Oh, you don't like cheaters? Oh, I'd never cheat. Oh, and they want to skip all the proof and just have you take them at face value. And as they state, which bears repeating, is with these people, what you see is not what you get. And yes, they remind us that it may take a lot of pain before we realize it because of all the other factors going on, such as all the niceness and all the good things you got at first, and then the realization that some other things just don't seem so great, and trying to reconcile the two. Is it a good person or a bad person? And it's difficult. A part that I didn't cover before is a little excerpt in the middle. It's called, But He Just Needs a Good Woman. The ability of psychopaths to get others to take enormous risks for them is stunning to outside observers. In many cases, it is professional women who do the dirty work and in the process destroy their own careers. And then they reference one of the authors of this books, Robert D. Hare, Ph.D., in his book, Without Conscience. He described at length the exploits of a John Grambling, who was a well-educated, well-connected, and sophisticated scamster whose ability to steal or obtain money fraudulently from family, friends, and banks was so remarkable that one banker suggested that he should be compelled to wear a bell around his neck. Of course, he was caught, convicted, and sent to prison. Coincident with his release after 7 years, a psychiatrist at his prison attended one of Robert Hare's workshops. The psychiatrist had read Without Conscience and informed Hare that while in prison, Grambling had an affair with the prison psychologist and that they had planned to marry following his release. This same psychologist did psychological evaluations for the parole board and previously had attempted to gain Grambling's early release. The psychiatrist stated that the interesting thing about the affair was that he had showed a copy of Without Conscience to the psychologist, but that it apparently had no effect on her love for Grambling. The psychologist's actions were in violation of state and professional guidelines. She lost her job and her reputation. We don't know the psychologist's motives for her actions, but we do know that what she did is not at all uncommon in prisons. The next one was 8, avoid the psychopathic bond. And that's really difficult because really, if you're dealing with a new person and they're nice and friendly and interested in things you are, is it really your place to be a killjoy and say, I don't think you really like the things I like, you're pretending? Because then you will look unstable. And what if this person really does like you? The mirroring process is mentioned in this section. And I always say, like in all other videos, if you meet a person who just happens to fit in with every single thing about you, red flag, because face it, two strangers do not normally have every single thing in common. It's just the way it is. They once again go into how the Cluster B monster tries to convince you, like right off the bat, that his or her integrity is just without question. And my thoughts are like, sounds great, but show me. I'm in the show me state. I want to see it. You can't erase years worth of experience proving something by just stating, oh, well, you can trust me. But they think they can. But yes, it's common in their relationships. They will eventually guide you into believing that the two of you are a unique couple. And you're just destined to be together. Which may seem plausible, but if you stop and think, though, like, well, how long have we known each other? And the thing you have to learn is it's all phony, which you many times, once you've completed the whole cycle and survived, you get to see them again in their next life in action, and you can sit back and think, I fell for that one. And it's empowering to get to that point. And I agree with them stating that sensitivity to the bonding process is a good preventative medicine. Don't fall for anybody too quickly, which I learned that a long time ago, and am especially frightened when, like, those, you meet them once and all of a sudden, oh, they're your number one fan. It's like, okay. If they seem to be too good to be true, they actually probably are. And then number 9 was do not collude in the psychopath's game. And what they're referring to here is that once you've finally got to the point where you've regularly hung around each other for so many weeks or whatever, you will discover that your hot buttons and your weak spots are used to gain your compliance and to reaffirm the relationship. But they're warning you not to do what many people will do, because remember, there are always a series of good things going on, and many of us think, well, I like these good things, so I've got to keep these good things. So you deal with the bad things, but the problem is the bad things are an indication that you're dealing with a non-repairable monster. And they do bring up the interesting point about how healthy relationships are balanced. Each one gives and takes. It's not one person dictating the way it is and the other one complying. But there's another little excerpt in this part called Fighting Satan. Derry Mainwaring Knight was sentenced to 6 years in prison in England for defrauding a number of wealthy and influential Christians who believed they were helping him to fight devil worshippers in a satanic cult. He had ingratiated himself into a church community and convinced the members that the devil had taken hold of him and that the only way to break away was for him to become head of his own organization, the Sons of Lucifer. In this way, he said, he could destroy the satanic cult from within. But to do so, he needed to buy a great deal of expensive satanic regalia and black magic artifacts. The rector of the church was hooked and enlisted the support and financial aid of many prominent politicians and businessmen. One even provided a Rolls-Royce automobile so that Knight could impress other members of the cult. The money he received was spent on a lavish lifestyle. He was charged with 19 counts of fraud. In his defense, he stated that he had no need to defraud anyone because he made up to $25,000 a week from his prostitution ring. Following his conviction, his mother stated that he had bilked her of $92,000. She also said, "He often told me that you can always take Christians for a ride because they won't take you to the law. Jail is probably the best thing that could happen to him." On to another excerpt, which is They Don't Get It. 3. Sebastian Burns and Atif Rafay were given 3 life terms for savagely murdering Rafay's mother, father, and sister in Washington State for $500,000 in insurance money. Rafay and Burns apparently believed that most people were stupid, that intelligent people were above the law, and that the only crime is to get caught. But it's Burns who stands out as the more calculating, callous, arrogant, and grandiose. Following their conviction, Burns addressed the court in a 2-hour rambling, self-serving oratory described by the judge as chilling and by the prosecutor as something he had never seen before. But then, "I've never seen anyone like Sebastian Burns before. He's a psychopath," he said. Reporters described Burns as being tremendously articulate, more like a high school debater than a convicted criminal, and as holding some audience members spellbound. The judge commented, "Mr. Burns, you are not immoral, you are amoral. You have no moral rudder whatsoever. You are an arrogant, convicted killer. You will be responsible for your premeditated, naked, vicious massacre of his family." Burns portrayed himself as a victim and said that the police got him to brag about the murders so that he would impress important criminals who were trying to recruit him. Hare's view is that the court performance by Burns was bombastic, disjointed, contradictory, confusing, and confused. The fact that some members of the audience found it compelling is a tribute to the ability of some psychopaths to put on a good show without saying anything of substance. While he was in custody, the 26-year-old Burns was caught having sexual relations with his 43-year-old married public defender. The Bar Association recommended that she be suspended for 1 year. but the state Supreme Court increased her suspension to 2 years and ordered that she undergo a psychological evaluation before being reinstated.
I love you.
So, your husband tells me you're having a hard time accepting the fact that he and I are having to work together so closely for so many extended hours. Well, honey, it sounds to me like you're a little paranoid. I don't have any interest in your husband. After all, he's your husband, not mine. And it's not my fault if he brought me a card or bought me this beautiful necklace. It's just to be polite because we are in business together.
You need to stop being so paranoid and just love him for who he is. He would never hurt you. He's told me all about your insecurities and honey, you need help. But if you don't get it, he might just leave you for somebody as beautiful as me. So keep that in mind. But nothing's going on.
What are you doing? So you found me. Well, aren't you the detective?
And, need I go down the list? The point was, you just needed to learn to trust me. The few times you caught me with someone else, well, that was a hired actor. I didn't do nothing. I was just trying to teach you a lesson. So finally, I had enough. And I took your little billfold after I drugged your beer for the evening. And I laughed all the way to the bank. And you ain't gonna see that money because I'm pregnant now and I've got a baby to think of. So stop being so selfish. Stop stalking me and trying to hunt me down. I don't owe you a thing. In fact, you owe me another $1 million for pain and suffering for daring not to believe me because I never lied to you. You are just too paranoid.